I don't know if you ever know this. This is super fast, but I got drunk like 20 some years ago and got ordained in a religion based off the Big Lebowski. You just got to like pay
I
money.
do this.
Hell yeah.
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
heard,
So
yeah.
I started doing weddings and all that, but like, confusing. I looked into like what it would take and what in the eyes of the whatever constitutes like a church service in a church.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And it's so like convoluted that I feel like I'd have to like get a lawyer. You know what I mean? And be like, can you break down this jargon for me? You know
So
what I mean?
it's really not hard at all.
Yeah.
At least I don't know how it differs by state, but like federally, it's supposed to be easy as hell to start a church. You know,
Because
there's
I
not
was just
supposed to be any regulation to prevent the practice of religion, so it's kind of meant to be easy.
because I was wondering if I could just get my work, you know, and then just like we'll get together, you know, if there's some minimum you have to meet and just watch the Big Lebowski once a month with a group of people and, you know, and just be like,
I know, like, to like start a church, some places require a church charter. And hell, why are we not putting this in the podcast? This is interesting. That's
All
something
right,
I
yeah,
know.
we'll keep it. We'll
Fuck.
fade into this.
or even if
talking
you
about-
just say, if I'll speak on it after. I'll tell you that. Just
Well,
maybe the very beginning. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like a church charter, and usually there's like a few people need to sign it. You might have to have some sort of doctrinal statement, and then you just register with the state as a church, and they pretty much hand out the nonprofit status because they can't, really be involved in your religious practices to very much degree. And in Georgia, it's extremely easy. And I don't know that they care a lot about online stuff. I don't know. The church I'm ordained through is brick and mortar, so
Matt, you need to turn yourself up.
Okay.
I can't really hear you.
might be. Hold on, stopping the recording for a moment. Sorry,
That's all right.
you're good. Go ahead.
I would like to just do whatever to make, have a more official status as a Dudeist priest where I wouldn't have to worry about these things. You know what I mean?
So, where did you stumble upon this Dudeist movement, or did you come up with it in a moment?
It was actually, I believe, is in the MySpace days.
Okay.
Just came across the page, went
I
down.
remember it.
Yep, went down a wormhole. There was like, always was a fan of the movie and such. And then they had a very simple, like, do you agree with these four, statements of whatever? Very simple, kind of like open, you know what I mean? It reminds me of the like, their statements were very like, it's like a mix of kind of just like the feel good parts of Christianity and the, like a Buddhist-y type, you know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
do you think all people are
Very appealing stuff.
So I was just like, well, I mean, if you ever seen the movie, it's just the same vibe.
I love Lebowski.
And I was
I
like,
have.
yeah, and I was just like, yeah, cool. And I was just like, it was one of those things where like, this is cool. And I hung the stuff up at work, just as like they sent me all kinds of like, got like a weird like pack like with stickers and a, you got like a letter of good standing you can take to the, you know what I mean? You could take to the courthouses and stuff, and then a plaque, and I hung it up at work, just kind of just as like a cool whatever. And then it was my tattoo shop I used to work at, like the front shop manager. She came to me one day and she was like, "You have this and this, right?" And I was like, "Yeah." She's like, "You can technically do a wedding, right?" And I was like, "Yeah." And her and her fiance wanted to they had some property with some woods, and they just wanted to kind of do something outside, So I did it. And it was cool. It was chill. It wasn't a lot of people. And then it was like, then someone's like, "Hey, I heard you did or whatever." And then it just started to be a thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. How often do you do it?
I think this will be my fourth or fifth one, maybe every year or two. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And I have another one
That's
in
cool.
August. And I enjoy them. I take them seriously. You know what I mean? Try
Yeah.
to.
How does that work with your anxiety? Because I get super anxious.
It's
I
bad.
honestly hate doing it.
I I'll forget little details. Like the
Yeah.
last one I did, I forgot to tell everyone to sit down. You know,
Oh, I've
after
done that
you know,
before
it's
several
like
times.
everyone comes in and you're like whatever, and
And
they're
it's
like to
so
look up. It's like, oh,
embarrassing.
yeah, everyone can sit down. And then so the first one I did ever, I was given the wrong time, and I wanted to go super early to like just. It was my first, first wedding I was doing, so I was like, man, I'm gonna get there like a couple hours early and just sit there and like take some deep breaths and like mentally prepare.
Yeah.
And it was like we were like 20 minutes away, and I looked at my phone and I had like 40 texts, and I was like, "What's up?" And the girl was like, "I gave you the wrong time," and literally like we pulled in, and I had to like run through the crowd.
No.
You know what I mean? Like up to the thing, and was like,
Oh no.
and I said instead of friends and family, I said like something like in family. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know what that's called when you like mix the beginning of words up. I had like a slightly like dyslexic whatever, and then all the ones my like weird rule is like I don't think I would do one if someone like cold called me. You know what I mean? Or just sent me a message like, "Hey, I don't know you. Would you do this?"
I get a lot of those.
Every one I've done so far has been like people I knew, and I feel like that's what takes maybe some of the nerve out of it. If I can look out and be like, man, I know like 80% of the people here. You know what I mean? I just feel like I'm at a big party or something. Just like talking. So, but
See, well, yeah. What were you gonna say?
I was gonna say, but I mean, I guess I enjoy I don't know, man. I enjoy do them in the sense of like helping people out that just want to have like a quicker, just non. I mean, I guess it's
Or
technically a
just have
religion.
more control over the whole version of the whole situation, not
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of
control in
churches
the
are
hands
pretty.
of like the venue or someone you hired to run the show or whatever. Which isn't like I don't. There's nothing wrong with there's. It's a good to hire party planners. It's a good job to have. It's good work to do. Parties need to be good, and we need people who are good at making them good. But I've worked I've been to a bunch of weddings. I've been to like a couple dozen weddings in my lifetime, just from you know growing up with millennials who all were all Christians and all fell in love when they were in high
Yeah.
school and then tried to get married as quickly as possible.
Right,
So
right.
they all did it on the cheap. So they all had the same fucking wedding as each other. Everything they did that was like, this is the new, instead of lighting candles together, now we're going to pour sand into two different things of sand and they're going to swirl together. Because that way the wind won't blow them out. Because we wanted to have our wedding outside. But it's still the same structure every time.
Yeah.
So I see what you're saying as oh, one of many ways of like taking back the concept of weddings from all of like the corporate institutions that turned it into this like rigid thing that's incredibly tedious, incredibly boring if you're not the bride. Like,
Yeah.
and if you're the groom, obviously you're in love, so you're just happy that your partner is happy. But like, as far as like, there's not much consideration of guests when these weddings get put together.
Yeah.
These like McDonald's style weddings, I would say. It's a very Baptist adjacent kind of culture that does all this stuff. So I think of weddings as being like a kind of boring, generic thing to get through anyway, because like no one has done anything interesting. So what you're talking about sounds like, hey, that's like the good version. Like we America ruined weddings, but what you're talking about is like slowly reconstructing it into something that's fun again.
This is one of my what you were speaking of roughly is one of even back in early one of my weird paradoxes. It's not really a paradox, but that I remember finding interesting was I was still like pretty at the time have like involved in church, but I remember like you were saying a lot of like very young people quickly getting married so that they weren't having premarital sex out of wedlock.
Yes.
And then a lot of them ended up divorced a year or two later. So then the paradox to me is what is worse, premarital sex or divorce. Do you know what I mean? It's like,
Ooh.
in my eyes, it's like I feel like premarital sex would be a little less, because technically, it's like you're not breaking a
A
vow that you
divorce,
made to
yeah, a
God,
divorce,
which
yeah.
is whatever. But yeah, I was always thinking like, I don't know, man, not to be that guy, but maybe before you get married,
Well, you don't make a vow to stay a virgin. Like, that's not a thing. That's a part of any tradition.
you know,
Some
Yeah.
dads invented it recently in modern times. But what I'm getting at is like there is a precedent for like across cultures making a vow before the cosmos itself. That's like a thing that you commit to. Whereas like being premarital sex is just an expectation you have, like honoring thy father and mother. Like you, but that's the logical way to look at it, but that's not the way reality happens. Like people are fucking a-okay with divorce unless you're like hyper Baptist, but
Yeah.
like people are stoked on divorce, but they freak the fuck out at premarital sex still.
which is kind of my, I remember even being young and being like, and even still being into everything and being like, these are the things that are boggling my mind at the time prior, are also the things that led up to, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, you were ahead of me. I was caught up in all the elitism that all the very empowering elitist feelings I got from studying Calvinism. So I had to get into my 20s to like think about the shit you're talking about.
that's probably where I
So,
was at, probably like 2021, I would
oh,
say. It was when I actually was like around the same age group of people. And there were a few, there were some people that, I mean, maybe were, I guess, in love or whatever, that it spanned the whatever, but then there was a lot of the opposite too. You know what I mean? Probably more
yeah.
so. The majority, at least at that age, I noticed was did not work out well. You know?
Well, I bore witness to a lot of pop culture ideas that ended up being true in the most generic, like straightforward way. Like a lot of shotgun weddings that I saw my friends get caught up in because they couldn't, they couldn't plan ahead when they were in the throes of passion, or they couldn't have a set of standards about, so they got someone pregnant, which is fine. I'm just saying, if you want one outcome, then it's the onus is kind of on you to facilitate it. Which is to say, wear a condom. But like, I was happy to do that in my adult, throughout my 20s. So I didn't see the issue, but my point is that like I had friends who just I guess they were just so excited at the idea of any like serious attention from someone they're attracted to, like reciprocating, that was like that they would just run after things, whereas I was always super paranoid and skeptical, so I avoided this stuff. And then I saw like actual like, yeah, he just knocked her up and then they had to get married because everyone was at pissed, which was not like I thought that was Beverly Hillbilly shit. I thought that's way too complicated. Like people are way too complicated and nuanced to actually enforce that, right? But no, in Florida, that was happening. So I saw a lot of stuff like, and that's sort of why I was like, okay, maybe the idea of approaching this from some sort of like, well, I'm gonna try someone else's method, and I'll just stick to like taking advice from like your pastor or whatever about relationships. Like maybe that's not a solid way to move forward if all these people who like seemingly believe in what I believed in at the time were running into all these problems that I thought were supposed to be easily avoidable just by like walking the thing that we all talked about, you know. uh Whatever. But and not uh forcing, not force, that's such a, I mean like not, bringing life into this world that you're not grown up enough to take care of. Anyway, I'm dovetailing off into a bunch of crap.
It's okay.
I'm just ranting about Florida right now.
It's
It's
all right.
fun. I love Florida. It's one of my favorite places in the country 10 years ago. That's it. Anyway, now that I'm done rambling about that, let's move on to, well, we could keep talking about church stuff, but I did want to hit on some fun updates since the last time, like because that new Zayo EP is out, and I finally listened to the whole thing, and I really love it.
Awesome. I haven't listened yet.
It's all right.
Oh well, it's very. It's supposed to be nostalgic, so it's okay to call it nostalgic in a really good way. I love the production. I love how you guys managed to make it sound like you were in a room, even though you're not.
Yeah, that
But
was
it's
our
all
cool.
really locked in well. I like all your fucking layers. I don't know how much of that was brute force and how much of that was someone just, copy and panning stuff, but I love it either way.
Yeah, that's Jeff's doing he's doing a lot of the mixing and stuff. That was our first. That was also our like experiment of doing everything from our own.
Yeah.
I did everything here, and Scott did everything. Jeff. We were all able to. I don't know, it's just something we've been working on, and then the funny thing is those songs are. I mean, from doing interviews from the beginning, when people would ask about like the sound, I was always like, we're just kind of like borrowing from what was around us. Do you know what I mean? But a
Yeah.
lot of people had never heard it, so I guess this was just a good whatever of the kind of not that those were the only influences too, but those were like the main initial kind of bands that lit a fire under our ass in a sense to really want to do. That was like teenage, you know what I mean? Whatever, man. Those are like the bands that I used to just not used to. That's poor. Those are the bands that I, at the time, especially was like in awe of, and you know what I mean. Wanted to emulate in my own way, or whatever. And not just me, but Russ and Brett and you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And it all started because I wanted to cover Data Body forever, and then we were just
Well, I've been wanting some sort of acknowledgement of creation in some way, so this is the closest I get to that, which is awesome. Like,
and then
I
in
don't expect. Oh, what are you gonna say?
in the van we just we always get into like weird big fours. You know what I mean? Like, and hours and hours on end. Like, what's your big four? This and that. And so we were just talking about it one day, and that's how that all started. Wanted to do that, and then we were playing. I don't know if you saw Jeff's one post, but the initial idea was that we were gonna like do this, and then just do it on like CDRs, and it would only be available at the show.
Oh yeah, I
And
saw
then we were
that.
gonna like just destroy the rest of them. Which and then it just went from that to an actual thing. But like, yeah, no, it was fun, man. It was cool, and I'm stoked. Especially, I mean, I'm sure people are gonna go back and check out the original material, and that to me is like the coolest part. You know what I mean? Kind of like,
Yeah, that's cool.
It's very clear the crossover in like vibes that everyone was sharing with each other. Like even if people were doing very distinct things from one project to the next, like creation does sound very different from Passover and Abnegate. Like, but you can hear that there's this like sense that everyone was hanging out and they were all physically present with each other so often that like the influence just rubbed off unintentionally.
and then
And I'm sure a lot of it was intentional.
and then recently, what I've been doing for any recording project is I do like 2 mid high, 2 mid lows, give it to whoever, and they can do whatever they want with it. You know what I mean? I'm kind of like, if you want to do, kind of that weird high low mix and get that vibe, go ahead. If you want doubled highs, doubled low, you know what I mean? Or if you want to go back and forth, I don't know. I'll just do it all, and then you just can take it, and it's almost just just hand it to people and be like, I've said I have to
that's a
kind of
great
like
way to do it.
kind of have to like have a trust to an extent, but like so I've been doing at least with even occasionally if I do a guest thing, I'll do the same thing. You know, because usually on guest stuff, you're not doing like an insane amount of
You
material
can
on a song, so it's
embellish
like
more.
usually 4 tracks, and it's kind of like do what you want with them. So I don't, you know. So
Well,
it's funny because sometimes when that stuff gets like finished and mixed and comes back, not that I'm hearing it for the first time, but it's interesting to me to hear like what people have chose to do with
yeah.
it. I guess I don't know.
Yeah.
So
Have you ever seen like the Drumeo things on YouTube where like a big drummer will hear a song they've never heard before
like,
without the drum track?
and then play along.
Yeah, and then try to do it their own way. I really enjoy those things. And it's kind of, people kind of tend toward a similar vibe no matter what. But their own flavor of it. That you get to like trust someone to take your material.
Mm-hmm.
That's really cool. I don't know. So something about that process just sounds interesting to hand that over and then get the products that I've heard from you, you know, that you're not,
This is
that you're just
relevant.
handing this over to people and trusting the process, and they're coming up with this incredible mix that I, you know, have fallen in love with.
What you're talking about is
Amazing.
an example of something we've already talked about here in a very broad, sort of philosophical sense. That, like, what you're talking about is the magic of being in a band, pretty much.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know, of handing something you came up with over to someone else,
yeah,
letting them take their creative instincts, their creative desires and agendas, and infusing that into what you've already done and seeing the brand new thing. That's the magic of it, you know.
yeah.
That's why people talk about things being their babies or whatever, because it does at a certain point feel like magic, like you're creating
Oh,
a
sure.
new life form, you know, when you have that collaborative process. And I say a band, but that applies to any, that applies to like making a stage show or making a video game or a movie or anything like that, you know, any type of like thing where you're like, you have a very independent creative vision or idea or something, and then you bring it to life yourself in a way that represents you, and then you hand it over with, you know, the higher purpose being like, all right, what we're gonna do from here is gonna be like something that never could have existed without the both of us. You know, I couldn't have
Yeah,
come up with it, you couldn't have come up with it, but now because
yeah,
we came together, it exists. You know, that's what excites me about all this shit. That's why, you know, like, I enjoy being in control to some degree, but I'd much rather like take some riffs I came up with and hand them to someone and then hear what they do in an actual guitarist and hear what they do with it, you know.
yeah. That's awesome. I've never really been part of that sort of collaborative process. So,
You have in unintentional ways, maybe. I
well,
mean,
sure. Yeah.
you've been involved in church stuff, so there
It's
was
been a
that
long time.
happening. Well, and you've been involved in community
Oh, yeah.
shindigs, you know,
Yeah.
where the goal isn't to generate profit, the goal is to generate joy
Yeah.
or substance of some sort,
Yeah.
you know. And that's also what Twin Peaks is about. The magic of Twin Peaks comes from all the human beings doing their thing, all the stuff they bring to the picture, you know. There's no one talks about animal spirits haunting them. It's all shit people are doing. So
Yeah.
it's all relevant. It's all part of the big picture, I think. That's why I think this stuff is so intrinsically valuable to humanity, like, you know, the arts in general and the concept of like being all uh, artsy fartsy and deep and pretentious. I think that has value because, you know, this is kind of the our version of aether or whatever, like our constructed aether that we have that propels us forward, that inspires us to do things that otherwise wouldn't happen, that no other animal does. You know, no other animal goes to the moon because they didn't come up with Star Trek or fucking whatever. I don't. It wasn't Star, but you know what I mean. They didn't like. They didn't have Ray Bradbury. You know, there's no Ray Bradbury for octopus, so they hang out in the ocean. They don't go anywhere else. But we went to the moon for politics, yes, but but also because someone was like, that would be sick, and everyone agreed on that virtue alone because it seemed like a magical idea, you know, like we're achieving some analog to the concept of like the peak of Mount Olympus, you know. That was us doing the secular version of that, and I think that stuff is eternally relevant. You know, everything we do kind of ends up going back to that. At least everything I do and I get involved in and interested in, it all points that way. You know, like Dan said a couple episodes back about the ontological object of transcendence.
Yeah. Transcendental object at the end of time.
Transcendental. Okay, that, yeah.
I was going over something today and I was looking at it. That's the only reason I remembered.
Yeah, I've ever since you brought that up, I've been thinking about it, and I've been like, actually, yeah, that, you know, that it constantly changes form, but I see it.
Yeah, it was it's like a cool shirt I got. It's like a memorial shirt for him. And every time I look at it, it's what I think about. It has like the I Ching, or the, what's that called?
I Ching.
I Ching is on the back, which is actually an interesting, man, I don't know. I've listened to people talk about it, but it's...
well, you need to
pretty,
explain it
you
for
know,
me, because I
it's
don't
like-
know what it is.
It's almost, I don't want to do a poor job of this. It's like a...
It's fine. I'll look
it's
it
almost
up.
like... The way I look at it is there was almost like... There's like these like dice or pieces, and there's 99 different outcomes. And it was all like mathematical based, and it was used to make decisions. Do you know what I mean? Kind of like... and it seemed to have an eerie ability to... Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
Kind of... yeah, it was a...
Book of Changes. That's a shitty eye. All right, yeah, this is Wikipedia. Anyway, continue.
Yeah, and I mean that's about it. And it's he was Terrence McKenna, I believe, was pretty fascinated by it. You know, that's who I've listened to talk about it in like little clips. But it's on the back of the shirt, and then
Well,
it's like a little mechanical elf.
awesome. Well, that gives us a good.
Yeah, I can maybe
transition into the
I will
episode,
brush up, and I will maybe kind of whatever on a later episode. You know, I'll even write a note to myself here.
I was gonna say this seems like it's gonna become very relevant as we move into this stuff, because this is ancient Chinese, but they're talking about all kinds of philosophies in these particular episodes coming up of Twin Peaks.
Mhm.
You know, I have my notes for episode 3. That's because I realized last episode. I don't know if you saw.
Just about the woods part a little bit, but I was
Well-
thinking, I was like, oh, and then it was after we were filming, and I was like, that's right. That's
I made
why-
a lot of mistakes. I thought that episode 2 stuff that happened in episode 3 happened in episode 2. So I got confused, and then I rewatched.
Okay, I was
episode
confused
3.
by that too.
Yeah, that was on me, so that's why I did a little intro video. Anyway, that's all in the past, but my point is just that I am now have correct notes for episode 3 to pick up right where we left off and move on.
Matt did make the the disclaimer bar at one point. I I forget what it said exactly, but something along the lines of like the things we're saying may not be correct.
That's
So
great.
it's like, hey, there's a disclaimer, man. People, you gotta
Might as well, keep that around. So, this is episode 3, and this one is actually called. Hang on, Twin Peaks.
I have it if you want.
Yeah, this one I got it right. This one is not Roads to Nowhere or whatever episode. What's the title for episode 3?
Zen
Yes,
or the skill to catch a killer, which
Zen or the skill to catch a killer.
I feel like this is, I say it in every one, but this is the one where I was like, okay, this show's going to roll. You know what I mean? The part you talked about a little bit about last time, and then jumping ahead one time, just the first, and we can go back there, but even just like the first scene of the Black Lodge is in this one. And it's, throws up so much cryptic potential information that it's this is where I feel like it really starts to turn, where you're like, this is turning into something interesting, you know. Not that it wasn't interesting before, but it's breaking away from the norm even more so.
Well, there's a couple of, this is also where you start to notice a lot of patterns showing up.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I set all my lights to red because we're talking about the red, the Black Lodge and the red everything. Anyway, so, alright. We start off with the scene with the bad gets, and then we notice that there is our first, well, not our first example, but our first example of another incident of a group of, like a family or a group of people who are, a part of a in their home location or whatever, and we see that they are the caretakers of someone who is disabled in a wheelchair, and then you start noticing that every group that you end up cycling between in all these different stories, they all are caring for someone who is in some way disabled. So that's a consistent element that's like every time you pop between one person to the next, some, like with it happens to Leo, with freaking, why am I blanking on his name? The guy who owns the lodge, the guy who owns, oh my gosh.
We need to keep
I have the
IMDb
episode
open.
up.
I know.
Ben Horn, yeah.
Yes.
Like he, they're taking care of his,
And we get to meet his brother.
his son. Yeah, his brother pops in with a baguette. I'm sorry, I'm going through, but there are good things to say about this. And then a couple of patterns show up. It's that, so everyone's caring for someone, and then you see the first sign of a pattern is that when the Norwegian deal ends up not working out or whatever, they go to One-Eyed Jack's to take it out. It's like it's presented in a very like nonchalant way, but like if you think about it, they're going to One-Eyed Jack's to take it out on the girls there, their frustration and anger, because they're frustrated that the deal didn't go through. So that's sort of a sign of like, okay, this is how the people in power express themselves here, is they go and we know what happened to Laura, so they go and abuse, like, women, girls get sacrificed. So that's one sign of a pattern that feeds into the weird mythology here, and I'm a little scattered or whatever, but like I said, I think there's really cool stuff being set up here.
Yes, and like you were talking before, I think a lot of them are also not of age. Not all of them, but you know what I mean? So there's that like kind of like modern, sad kind of fact, in
Yeah.
there. It's all the, you know,
It's
I
one of
mean,
those things that takes the fairy tale element away from it.
yeah, and you can, I mean, and it's not, you can figure it out pretty quick, but they use the one store, the perfume counter is like like young people get jobs at the mall pretty much, and then it's like a weird, I don't know what the technical term would be, but it's almost like
Grooming.
yeah, it's like a stage or like a platform, maybe is a good idea in which to recruit. Uh, you
You
know what
know
I
that's
mean?
how it actually works because the Epstein files said that's exactly like they would hire young girls for these, on paper, straightforward jobs like a massage or just serving drinks or something. And then there would be lots of pressure and implications to do a lot of things that, and it's presented as very matter of fact, as like, oh, well, you should have expected this to happen.
Yeah.
Because
At
you
least
can
that's how
even,
they do it in Twin Peaks.
and you can tell when they go there. There's the new girl, you know what I mean? And I feel like
Hmm.
that's who Ben and Jerry are interested in, and you can tell that Lynch wants the audience to know that she's very like scared, or you know what I
Hmm.
mean. Uh, you know, it's like
Yeah.
not against. I don't know how best way to explain it, but yeah, no, it's you can tell that she's like nervous and I don't know, I mean, has been talked into something or
Hmm.
maybe some sort of against extortion or whatever you want to call it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
To be a part of this place, um, and then you're assuming that potentially maybe that's what Laura and what's her face
Hmm.
had maybe potentially gotten themselves into in some way, shape, or form. At
And
least
when
in
they
the,
go into One Eye Jacks, and you first get like their little casual, visit there. They don't go. It's not the full undercover walkthrough. It's just a little, like I said, a visit. I think it's interesting because this is before. Wait, does I think in the last episode he dream or does he? Is there a dream in the Black Lot or in the?
it's at the end of three. Yep. So when he has the long,
Okay,
that's
okay.
like the end. Kind of
So yeah,
ends.
so they go to One Eye Jacks before you see the actual Black Lodge.
Mhm.
Cool. And because that's what I'm saying is like it's all very similar to it in a lot of ways. Like it feels separate from reality. It's across the border.
Yeah.
It's separate from the town. So then it enters that dream world kind of state, and so it's similar in that sense. And then I also noticed when they line up all the girls to offer them, to take your pick or whatever, uh, it's like they're all coordinated in order, like altar boys, like a liturgical kind of
Mhm.
arranging of people on, you know, in that kind of thing, like in any sort of religious kind of thing. So it just looked very liturgical and religious in how they presented them. Like, they're all arranged in order of how their place on the hierarchy of being servants to you, you know, which is very religious. And also, there's a bunch of random poetry showing up, and people are making little quips, which is just like the Black Lodge. In the Black Lodge, people say seemingly random things, but it is just poetry, and that's happens in the dream too. So, I think there's a very clear link between those two, and because it's David Lynch, it's supposed to be all about how you feel. It's not a bunch of deep technical things. So to me, what I feel when I think of that is how the dreamness, like I think that's a way of Lynch exercising his practices of keeping himself in check is kind of, and I don't think any of this is on purpose. Like I said, I think it's all vibes. I think it leans into this idea that like dreams are not a place of good. Like it's a dangerous. Like it's anything. Like it's not good or bad. Like it can easily, become something horrific. Just as much as it's beautiful. So it's not this aspirational thing to be in a dream state or to be dreamlike. It's something else entirely. That's sort of what I get initially, and that's what I kind of the philosophy. Like as I rewatch it, I was like, yeah, I feel like a level of conviction in this, and that it's like also, aside from the reality that it reflects of real human trafficking, it also gives me a sense of conviction of like, do I let myself indulge myself in my own imagination too much where I'm just feeding my own ego and then it turns into something like, that's what it makes me think about. Is like, am I keeping my own ego in check? Even aside from all the virtues I might cling to in reality, like, am I still letting myself get away with a bunch of things because I think like, well, that was just my feelings or thought experience. Like when really I should be, uh, you know, aspiring to be more articulate, be more advanced than that as just a general person, as a human being, and have habits and ways of going about things that are more not disciplined because that's very meaningless, but like more practical or pragmatic, as opposed to just feeding my head when I am bored. I think about that because these guys are rich and they're bored, so they take it out on other people, and I may not be rich, I may not be taking out my imagination and frustration on real physical victims, but I'm guilty of taking it out on abstract or people from a distance, or unintentionally doing that. So think about all that stuff. I know that's a big fucking long rant, but
No,
like
that's the point.
this is what I love the show because of this shit. Like it makes me look back at myself inwardly.
And just a small interesting thing I made a note of is that how you were saying that One Eyed Jacks kind of feels like the Black Lodge. What's interesting is the madam of One Eyed Jack's name is Blackie, or her nickname at least,
Oh yeah.
which I found
Yeah.
interesting. You know what I mean?
Yeah, which is just like a little a kernel in the back of your mind. It's that word popping up. So like when they start saying Black Lodge, you have, and then they start talking about her again. You just vaguely associate. It's fucking brilliant.
And I don't think they give it a name for a while. I feel like kind of maybe because we've been through it, it's the Black Lodge. But I think it's a while till they give it a name. You know what I mean? Till they actually title it, and so
Hmm.
it's just that weird dream state place at first, and then it's interesting too because it's eventually a place that can be entered via a dream or a physical.
So it is a real place.
Yes,
Like that
It
that weird
becomes
vision
one.
thing was there.
Yeah.
yes. He was. It was
God, it was so
almost.
confusing.
It was a flat, not a flash forward, but it was like a little bit of a. You know what I mean? It's he was.
He's got old age makeup on, so there's an implication with that.
Yes.
I kind of just took that to mean like the general vagueness of dreams where things are just off. So
Yeah.
you might project an imagined idea of what you look like when you're old
Yeah.
in an otherwise unrelated situation. But yeah, it might be. I guess because I haven't watched the whole thing as recently as you have. Maybe.
I feel like after the little bit of where they tease. Well, there's One Eyed Jacks. There's a little thing where with Don and James, were there, and they finally have gotten together. Um, they talk a little about how
Yeah,
Ronette was the survivor with Laura about the perfume stand and so on and so forth. The one armed
but she
man,
can't talk.
the one armed man had escaped, and then he gets the note with the Jack with one eye. But then after that, the next part that I thought, because they're just starting to show you behind the veil, is the Bobby and Mike in the woods meeting
Yeah, I was going to
Leo.
talk about that
Yeah.
because they're looking for the drugs and money and the football, and then Leo confronts them,
Mm-hmm.
and that's kind of when you start to get a sense that everyone is pretty kind of in some way aware of everyone's affairs, and they all have different layers of responding to it. Like they have, sometimes they decide to be upset, sometimes they decide they don't care, which is very realistic.
Yep. And then it's you also find out that Laura was a part of all this, which is interesting
Yeah.
because they're starting to break the mold of her being like like an upstanding, you know, you know what I mean, kind of like her school personality, whatever is whatever, as well as that. I feel like I remember because even watching it again, you're starting to wonder if Leo knows about like the stuff with Bobby and Shelly because he's being like extremely specifically weird to Bobby. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Which that whole and it's the first scene I feel like that you get a little not horror, but you start to get like a little bit of a vibe of like this is going to go to like dark, like you know what I mean?
With the go out for a pass thing, I
Yeah,
also thought that was a really great example of David Lynch doing like perverted Americana, where
yeah,
it's exactly what someone would do, but
yeah,
what that ends up being in a macrocosm is like they're doing football, but they're turning it into this horrific thing, and then that ends up, you see more, that's already happened, and that is just a little small example of it. And then I also had a note that just said, at the end of because everybody's, they're very like shaken up by him torturing them that way, threatening them that way. They're like, "Fuck, this guy's great." And then, after that scene, I kind of got this sense that, like, in some way, everyone ends up feeling what Laura felt in one way or another. Like they all end up having to go through the sort of terror she went through. Like they'll end up paying for the sin, I guess. Which doesn't like have any specific meaning beyond just like going back to like the very community generated magic of the whole place. Like that's sort of the sense of justice. Is it's kind of this ethereal, vague thing where like if there's a squad of people keeping things, like they said, the order that they have, like things kind of just happen in very uh seemingly natural cause and effect but ugly ways, where Laura dies and all that kind of stuff. But because other people directly, experience it. Like Cooper has to see visions of what she went through, So yeah, it is just this kind of ethereal magic, that's generated by the humanity. That's how I see it. It's just being generated by just the raw humanity happening there.
and Coop's not technically part of the town. I feel like why sometimes his stuff comes in like dreams and visions versus the background of like the community, being part of it or embedded in it.
He embraces it, but he's slightly more objective. He's not entirely objective, but slightly more. So I think the dream, having it when he actually dreams, kind of like gives him a sense of like separation until he starts, getting more and more involved with everyone.
And then I think shortly after that scene, it's the weird. I like the Ed and Nadine thing. It's when he steps.
I had a lot of thoughts on that.
Yeah, it's when he steps on the curtain and she's very mad, but it ends up being the whatever to the invention she's really looking for, which is kind of soundless drape runners.
Which, there's a lot you could say about her obsession with that. I don't have any thoughts specifically on that yet, but the idea that oil on his hands from his work ends up destroying her invention.
Yeah,
And then,
just an interesting like couple or characteristic thing. I just thought nothing too deep. Just like it's like this angry woman with an eye patch, that's obsessed with drapes, which is just
Yeah,
like a it's like feel like a lynch. You know what I mean? Like after that, the only note, and this doesn't have to be talked about at all, but I don't know what the obsession is. But after the drape scene, there's a quick scene where they're out in the woods, and it's short and it bounces back and forth. But once again, it's an insane donut spread. Like the
oh
obsession
yeah.
with donuts in this is like, I don't know why. It's just, it's like one of those things I don't think I ever not caught, but really whatever the past few times I watch, it's like when they're eating them, they're like almost like it's not like a regular show where they like show it on a plate and they take a bite. They're always like stuffing, like
Yeah.
almost like they're mad. And then it's like they'll show the spreads and it's got to be like $150 in donuts. It's just like an entire table. And then I just started thinking like, man, anytime there's like donuts, they really it's like obscene. You know what I mean? Just like stupid little
It kind of just adds to like the sense that like this place is insulated from like
yeah.
the chaos and the what's the word, the scarcity that you get in like a cosmopolitan, more raw, real situation like New York, or where's Cooper from?
That I don't remember. I know he says initially where he's from, but
Dale Cooper. Do, 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 do.
I forget where like the FBI it's like based,
Yeah,
like his branch or whatever.
Philadelphia is where it says he was born, but where does he work?
So that'd be a far drive to
Transferred to San Francisco.
Snoqualmie, Washington.
Okay, yeah,
Twin
San
Peaks.
Francisco, I think.
Okay.
So yeah, big city. Like it's in a contrast to big city, and how that kind of like uh, what was I say? Like yeah, the contrast how they're sort of insulated. Like when you think of doing the same situation happening in a big city context, and it's like, of course, everyone's trying to get donuts, so you wouldn't be able to get any; they'd all be gone. But in Twin Peaks, there's so many donuts that there's too many every day. It's just another layer of like, this is why we need to protect this place. That kind of thing. Like, I think it adds to that. Like, it's like, I hate to repeat stuff like this. It's so lame, but it is another reason why Lynch is great, because he just, he says yes to these ideas to be extra like that. It just adds to it. But I was also going to say about Ed and Nadine that it's another example of patterns showing up where you see there's multiple accounts of partners who are very abusive in one way to the other, and that's what drives them to have affairs. And like this, you'll see this across everyone's like relationship. Like they're with someone and that person is like incredibly like, like they're just lashing out at them either verbally or like one way or another, and so of course that person cheats on them, and then that lends into all of the tangled webs we weave and all that stuff.
Yep.
But it's because people take their anger out on each other.
Because the next two quick scenes after the curtain, whatever is, Bobby shows up at Shelly's and she has a black eye. And that's when Bobby talks about like he's going to kill Leo. And then when Ed shows up at dinner or at the diner, it looks like he may have been, you know what I mean? So it's almost like, and it's interesting because it's like a male abusing a female and then a female abusing a male back to back, which is, you know what I mean? Which is just like,
yeah, it shows how it goes around.
Yeah.
It's not like one particular. It's like it's people in giving into their, baser or their darker instincts. It's not like a thing being upheld. And what else was I gonna say? Okay, I'm all over for this because now I have notes about the scene where he's throwing the rocks. which there's a I actually don't have a ton of notes for that because a lot of that scene explains itself, I think. But there's fun details that, like, ever since you started pointing this stuff out, Dan, now I'm noticing and I want to point it out. Like, I love how Cooper spits out the coffee as if it's disgusting and there's something wrong, and then he says it's damn good, which is just a great. It's
Yeah.
a great It's a great example of him and how you just really you think you know him, but he always has something up his sleeve, And it's a great example of just like the depth of it, I think. And I laughed so hard when that happened. He spits it all the way, and he's like, "I have to say, this is one damn good cup of coffee." And he makes this whole big deal about it because it's good. He spits it out because it's so good. That's such an insane concept.
And it's weird because I wonder if there's a parallel between that and then like the fish in the percolator thing. You know what I
I
mean?
thought of that too. Yeah.
Between like really good coffee and like, I mean, what would I'm sure if you would sit here, you could think of worse things, but I would imagine coffee brewed with a fish in the percolator would be probably like the nastiest thing you've ever.
Yeah.
I'm sure you could get extreme and think of nasty
much worse. Yeah.
things, but I guess organically, that's not like getting into like super like Cannibal Corpse type. Of, you know what I mean? Like whatever. You know what I mean? Like getting into like weird stuff. But and I believe later in the episode he talks about like he tells Coop that I guess a fish took a liking to my percolator.
Oh,
which is such a weird. Hey, there was like nobody knows how this fish got in. Like the fish like placed itself in there out of its own. You know what I mean? Which is like, and this is like the thing I like about Twin Peaks is like the dreaminess is like they don't feel that they. David Lynch doesn't have the drive to explain a lot of things, especially things that you would feel that they would explain. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Like, you know, in a lot of shows, I feel like it's some weird episode. They would have some weird twist where it's like, and that's how the fish got in the percolator, you know? But like, what I like about Twin Peaks is
some important way.
it's more like this dreamy where there's things that are brought up that are whatever that just are meant to just be these weird things that are never really like, kind of want like not the need to explain everything, which I guess is a cool, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And it's in the tone. Like an example of that is like everybody leaning in when Cooper is explaining how he's going to do the rock experiment where he throws the rocks. The way they all lean in is just so Looney Tunes.
Yeah.
And I know it's Looney Tunes specifically because it's David Lynch and that's the stuff he watched, you know? So like it's like so I see that and I'm like they're just having fun. Because they know it'll be, you know, it'll just add to it. So it's like, yeah, just make it more whimsical. Why not? And then the glass shatters for Leo Johnson, which, you know, I don't know what that could mean at this point, but I also kind of took it as the foreshadowing that, like, he's about to be broken in the head. Not to spoil it for Matt.
Yeah.
And you said you watched up to episode 5, right?
Yeah, I want to like. Now I feel like I have to rewatch 2. And 3.
Well, you might as well if you got time, but that's fine. You don't feel excluded like as
No. Every time I rewatch after a conversation, it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah. This is totally a result of our schedules in the summer and all that. This is not. Don't worry about it. We're still doing great as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, the Leo Johnson thing. I just took that as foreshadowing. I thought the main purpose of that scene was kind of to express how Cooper works and how he's weird, but it works for him. You know, which I kind of see as like a vague self-insert of David Lynch himself, kind of saying, you know, like or him manifest, you know, showing himself through Cooper, and that like David Lynch also believes a lot of weird specific stuff, you know.
And
He, but he got what he wanted out of things in life. He made great things that were exactly what he wanted to make, and everyone liked him.
and you can tell too in the beginning of the Blackboard Woods talk. I mean, he was a big proponent of like transcendental meditation and stuff like that. So you know what I mean. You can. It's no surprise that there's a lot of like Eastern esoteric-y type of
Oh yeah,
overshadowing in a lot of
there's
his,
a
especially I feel like Twin Peaks more than any other, whether movies or you know what I mean.
yeah. Lucy's reading a book, a giant book about Tibet, just
Yeah,
because Cooper mentions it. So she starts reading, which I love. I love all the implications in that, and that it shows how just like much life she has, and that she hears something and she gets interested in it, and then she just goes after it. She gets a giant book and learns everything. So she's not, she's not dumb.
and then this is like
She's
there's some of the
yeah.
stuff in the woods too. It's like he talks about like the Dalai Lama fleeing and all that. And then I just like how it says, "I awoke," slightly quoted, say whatever. He had a dream 3 years ago that he awoke, wanting to help the Tibetan people as well as gain knowledge of a deduction technique using mind and body working with
God,
intuition.
what a line!
And I
What
was
a
just like,
line!
that's my point. Is this is the episode where I was like, I'm in on this, dude. Like this is like, you know what I mean? Like, and I mean,
Like
Kyle
Mark
McLaughlin,
Wahlberg's never gonna say that
yeah, yeah,
unless
no,
it's like an episode of Ted or something.
yeah. And but that was I would say that the woods scene was my probably one of my favorite scenes. And I guess for anyone watching that's never seen it, is Coop takes some members of the police department, to not get too overly detailed in this, out into the woods, sets up bottles, has a chalkboard, and then he has what? Let me check here. Andy stands by the bottles. Lucy has the chalk, and then it's like real specific where everybody stands, and then they name
Oh
a name,
yeah,
and he throws a rock in it when it hits the bottle. It's like it's just such a weird, just for that little speech, and then into this odd form of like, especially for an FBI agent, I
yeah,
guess, figuring out how to like question people and stuff. It's like, and it's also I like how they keep up the whatever that for as like eclectic as he is, he does a good job as an FBI agent.
yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Is like the
Which
kind of like interesting.
I think, yeah, that's I see that as like kind of a hopeful version, like because this was probably. I mean, I was a kid when this came out, so I wasn't aware of how cynical things actually were. But I do remember the '90s being pretty cynical.
Yeah,
So like having a character that like was a balance between like hardline cynicism, because there were times when he would get really real with people, and he'd be like, "Listen, I appreciate what you're doing, but this is not up to my standards, and you need to get in line. This isn't a joke. Like he does that with people sometimes, but like it's both of them, and I think that's like a cool uh, thing to not like to present as a very matter of fact. Like, yeah, this is just how he lives. He's not like proselytizing this idea, this way of life. He's not trying to get everyone to go along with him. It just works for him, which is I think a lot cooler than talking to ghosts or whatever as a cop in the '90s. I don't know. I don't know what people were doing. I was watching Power Rangers and Godzilla movies. Um, okay, next scene is the diner, the second Audrey dance, and then we start to see more layers of the relationship between Laura and Audrey. So when I first watched this, I thought this was just supposed to be a weird scene where girls said weird stuff to each other in weird voices, now I watch it and I'm like, okay, I get it. Audrey's being the way she is. She's, trying to bother people. She's trying to, make a scene or whatever. And Laura, or not Laura, or Donna, yeah. Donna is, trying to just be like, she asked her, like, so, what's going on? Like, she's, yeah, Audrey's trying to bait Donna into scheming with her because she has a long term agenda. She wants to do her own investigation and get closer to Cooper and all that kind of thing. So she wants to try and get Donna to help her out, but, like, Donna thinks she's really weird. You can tell, but she wants to be polite. She can't really hide it. So she's like, she says things that are just awkward, like, "Oh yeah, I thought that too." Okay, after like Audrey says stuff like, "Isn't this music too dreamy?" You know, and also Audrey kind of decides if the music is diegetic or not because you hear it and you're not sure if it's playing in the scene, and then
Yeah.
she says that, and you're like, okay, I guess it is actually playing, and everyone can hear it, which is a weird way of fucking with you in terms of like
Yeah.
your sense of reality. And I thought that was cool that like it kind of shows it's resembling her character in general, how she tries to dictate the way things much larger than her go just because she wants to be a part of things. She wants to grow up, and be involved in the real world. At least that's what I see when I see her acting like this. I relate to it that way. It's like, yeah, if I was her, I might have acted out in a similar way to try and get where I wanted to be. If I felt like I was stuck outside of everything, just because I'm a young person. In her case, a young girl. So that's multiple layers of being outside of the loop. Um, so I kind of relate to her in that she does weird shit to try and bother people and get attention from them, and then once she's got them on the hook, she tries to all right, this probably isn't gonna be like make me look great, but maybe I can learn something out of maybe I can get somewhere. That's what I see from her, and I think she's super interesting because of that. you know and this is also thanks to Dan pointing out that she wasn't just being weird and bored. She was trying to bother the people who she thought were keeping her on a leash, like her dad.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's well aware. I feel like not exactly what he's doing, but that he's not a good person, and I feel like he's one of the more negative elements in Twin Peaks.
And she clearly has a sense of internal justice in that she like feels like the onus is on her to solve this case whether or not the FBI does. She doesn't trust anyone else, so she's going along with other people to figure it out herself, which shows that like she has a real conviction about this shit. She takes it serious.
I always wondered too if her, because she's like not a whatever, but if she had a little bit of spite towards Laura just because they were almost in like a weird competition for
I'm sure, but I think
not for a person, but like not as like a bad person, but as like
I think in like a sisterly way.
yeah, like who's the more rebellious, do you know what I mean?
Who's the more competent at being a unique, interesting person? Who's the more actually substantial? That kind of thing. The kind of stuff that you think about when you're that age.
Yeah.
I'm more earnest and true than you are. That's why you think everyone else is a poser and you hate their music when you're a teenager. At least that's how I felt. So I find all the characters in the show to be really relatable, to be honest. The more I watch it, the more I think like I feel like I've been in this situation one way or another, even if it's not like this. I've been Edna screaming about the drapes and trying to figure it out, when everyone thinks I'm crazy, and then I do some insane shit like break my, I, she has her insane strength that comes from. I just wrote it down as strength from delusion, but like it's also just to sort of show that like this is how unique this person is. But I've been that. I've been Ed walking into that situation after a long day, and then I can't. I keep doing everything wrong, and then I just give up. You know. So it's a lot of fun. God, I'm talking way too much this episode.
No, keep going.
I just think about
I think it's very interesting. You have a lot of insight that I'm enjoying.
Just the more I watch this show, the more I'm like, yes, these people, they're real to me.
It all balances out, I feel like. You know what I mean? I was going to say, I feel like shortly after that is the first, you get to meet Albert and his team for the first time. They come into the police station. And it's also, I believe...
one of my favorite actors, by the way.
When Albert, they initially come in, he's real rude.
Yeah.
And what is it? Harry says, normally, if a stranger came in here and acted like that, they'd be looking for their teeth 2 blocks up on Queer Street, which is just like a super weird, you know what I mean? It's like...
very 90s.
Yes. And then Coop gives him the thumbs up when he's like, yeah, man, he was being rude. You know what I mean? It's like... It's cool to see.
To Coop, it's all a big new experience for him spiritually in his life,
Yeah. And I feel like it's the first time. Like I feel like up to that point, Harry is a very like, not pushovery character. It's the first time he like, you know what I mean. Kind of
He's
steps
extremely easygoing and very
up to a point. You know what I mean. He finally reaches someone whatever to the point of that he's not cool with, I guess. And it's funny to see Coop. You can kind of start getting the idea of the relationships of like Coop and Albert and so on and so forth. You know what I mean? He's
yeah, it's another like it's kind of the opposite of, or not the opposite, but it's like a cool reflection of Cooper in that like they're both competent, like they're both there because they're probably the best person for the job, like Albert comes around and immediately delivers great results. Like immediately he helps everything move along exactly the way they needed, and they like everything starts progressing in important ways. So like he clearly is the right guy for the job. But like Cooper's got his weird mysticism that he does. Albert is just a fucking like
dry,
no shit dickhead. He's there to do what he's there to do and not make any friends, which he's allowed to do.
And he's the classic like 90s cop boss trope. You know what I mean? That like, get in my office. Type
that
of,
actor in particular, Miguel Ferrer. I don't know specifically how I should pronounce the last name, but I can't think of anything where he's like played the same kind of character twice. So like it's great to see him, because I don't associate him like, I think the first thing I saw him in was Hot Shots, which I know because of Skinless. That's why I watched that movie, because Skinless took war. It's fantastic, and everyone knows that. That clip from that song. So then I watch Hot Shots, and it's like, hey, that's the guy who says that. Wow, he's got a really cool voice. And then, I see him in this other stuff, like where he's like a doctor, he's like, so I never know. So seeing him as this guy, it's just like, oh, wow, like he's playing a jerk, but I already love him so much that I see past it. Like I'm sympathetic to him, even though he's doing things that if I didn't know. Yeah, so that's a part of what I also love about it, is that like he does play this very kind of stereotypical thing, like you said, but like even at the beginning you can like see past that there's like this guy, like you're gonna get more of it. Like, you can tell, like, he's here for a reason. He's not a throwaway guy, you know.
Yeah. No.
And yeah, he's like, I think he's likable because of all that, because of the contrast. It's kind of a cool foil to everyone else. It forces Cooper to sort of discipline both people to you
Yeah.
know, keep them both in check and be like, all right, come on.
Pete gives Josie the key to get the ledger. That's like a big, where you can start to see that he's working against it. He's going against his wife's. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah, which makes it even more confusing.
I guess my point is, it seems like you were saying before, it's like every relationship, integral
pattern.
or whatever relationship. Yes, there's this, like, there's either like someone's abusive, or there's a lack of trust, or, you know, and it's like every single one. I can't think of, like,
Yeah.
outside maybe a few of the parents, you know what I mean? Like Laura's parents and maybe Donna's parents. There's really, I think every other couple maybe that they deal with are in somewhat sort of like dark, you know, there's some.
They don't
Behind the
imply insincerity. That's what I think is so interesting. Is like they do this weird thing that a lot of Hollywood movies do, where like they imply that, like, even aside from that, there's still like a genuine, earnest love and a want for things to possibly work out in the initial relationship that didn't lead to the infidelity. You know, like, you get this sense that, like, they do feel a tragic loss about it, and it's not just trying to get theirs. You know, like, they do want things to be idealistic and to work, but it just, you know, they're human, so they make decisions and things end up where they end up, you know. And that's a cool example of the proliferation of that. And then also another thing that's not specifically that, but another scene before we go back to the Black Lodge is when Ed and Nadine, you know, we go back to them, and she says that Ed actually, you know, his mistake gave her the, like, it showed her the epiphany she needed, and like the oil made the cotton swabs, cotton balls silent, and the oil's gonna come back. that's what fuck. Like, the first time I watched it, I didn't think about this. I was just like, okay, this is a fucked up relationship, but but now I know that means something, you know, and not specifically now, not in like some like, you know, technical numbers way, but what I take this as right now is what this indicates is, like, this is like one of the ways that the show is telling us, like, she discovered silent runners because he tripped and broke her stuff that she was working on and then she got super abused, and then it seemed like she was just going to pile on him more, so you feel like the problem is still there, but then she starts praising it, and then she turns the turn, you know, the hot and cold thing. And what I take this as is, this is the show kind of indicating that the story's moving forward now in ways that no one is in control of. Like, everyone tried to have control up until this point, and they're still trying to keep control. But this is like where episode 3 is now, where things are losing control and they're taking on their own momentum. You know, like, the oil has hit the runners and now they're moving, you know, and like, no one thought that was important, but that's happening now. You know, now she's got her thing, like, from the oil. So she got her wish after being abusive to him, you know, even though she's compromised. So you might say, like, oh, well, she, you know, there might be an excuse for her, whatever, probably not. But, like, there's something to be said there. But in general, the big thing is that, like, regardless of everyone trying their best to figure this out, you know, in a stationary picture, an autopsy, you could say, now it's moving again.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's moving again, and people are going to lose control. You know, that's... And then right after that, you go into the Black Lodge.
Mm-hmm. And then just to one last thing on that, it also I feel like in a weird way starts bringing up the like, is anything inherently good or bad type of question.
Great.
Kind
Yeah.
of reminds me of, there's like an old,
Great point.
it's like the weird old parable of the Chinese farmer. I don't know if you've ever like familiar with that
Tell
one.
me. Probably,
I'll
but
do the
no.
quick version. It's like a farmer was on, whatever, wakes up one morning to find out that one of his main horses has run away. So the neighbors come over and say like, "Oh, we see that your horse has run away," and he, is very like middle road about it and says, "There's different versions where he just says, 'So be it,' or 'Ah, so,'" and then he doesn't really have like, it's a negative thing, but he doesn't react to it as a negative or positive. And then 3 days later, the horse that ran away brings back two wild horses, and everyone comes over and says like, "Oh, you're so lucky." That horse that ran away, now you have three horses instead of one. And same thing, he says, "Ah, so," or "So be it," in different stories. And then a few days later, his son is trying to tame one of the wild horses, and he's he's like launched off, thrown off, and breaks his leg. And he's doing a lot of the work at the farm. Everyone comes over and says like, "It's terrible about your son." He says, "So be it, so what have you." And then a few days after that, the army comes around, and they are recruiting for the draft, and they cannot take his son because he has a broken leg. And then every one of the children tells, and it just goes on, and it's it's kind of a parable, or whatever
So there's
lesson
a dynamic to the
yes,
whole,
of inherent goodness or badness in events, which I feel like, sorry to go on a weird rant, but that is similar to what
good.
this drape thing is.
I love that.
In a weird way, is they're starting to, you know what I mean? There's like negatives that produce negatives, negatives that produce positives. Like, is any of this, which makes me wonder with his fascination with transcendental stuff and this and that, if it's possibly, like an underlying, can't ask him, but you know what I mean? That'd be an interesting question to ask David Lynch. I feel like if his view on like inherent, if events are inherently good or bad, you know what I mean? Based on, sorry.
I have a take on that, but that's not really informed by his. I'd have to get into his beliefs more.
Yeah, and I'm not even putting my whatever into that. That is just like it's more of a, just something to make my point make sense, I guess. You know what I mean? As opposed to something I would argue.
Yeah. Well, it draws more significance to that scene, which I'd rather do than not do, because I like the idea that the little fun scenes that we think are just goofy actually have a lot of substance to them that we can get, and I think this is one of them, and I like that because it also can lend itself to going towards a direction of talking about the bigger picture of it all, in that everything that we perceive as observers to this story, we have a very particular take on the fact that a young girl being murdered is one of the worst possible things to have happen. A young person being murdered is just one of the worst things that we can have happen. But we're humans in a world with other stuff, and this is, that's our take compared to whatever the rest of the ecosystem might think in its own judgment of things that's very different from ours.
Which is like one of the other interesting parallels is you find, as this show goes on, it's like, you wonder if they paint Laura as like, with some of her, you start finding like she was selling cocaine and a drug dealer. And so it gets into this, like with her passing, you know what I mean? It wasn't like you know what I mean? I think they go back and forth from like innocence to not, you know what I mean? So that you're looking at it in different lights. Do you know what I mean? Kind of like,
yeah.
It's kind of like in horror movies. I hate, this is a quick thumb point, but I hate in horror movies, like when the people, they do that thing where it's like, because, like they did it a lot in Friday the 13th, like these kids deserved it. Do you know what I mean? I enjoy horror movies more when the person being affected is just like maybe not innocent, where they're like, have never done
Sympathetic.
anything wrong in their lives, but they're not like, it's not this person doing this terrible thing that's being
Mhm.
punished. It's more of this kind of like, almost where like nature doesn't have it's not personal. Like, do you know what I
Yeah,
mean? Where it's like,
yeah, that's the stuff. That's why Nope fucked with me so much. Like that was a true horror movie to me because that made me think of something that could realistically threaten me as a human being,
yeah,
not just other humans. Like the idea, and I don't want to get too much into Nope, but I think Nope, like from the get go, like the thesis statement was monkey gets out of control in a movie studio, which is like a direct appeal to like primal fear of just something physically being able to destroy us in ways that we can't overcome intellectually or with any other, that's what that is, and that's what, this kind of like that's sort of also what Twin Peaks fucks with, is this idea that like even when you try your best, like just the un uh the magnitude of nature itself is just bigger than us.
yep,
It's just bigger than us. There's just more going on than our plans and agenda.
yeah,
You know, I don't think that's his. I don't think that's David Lynch's thesis statement. But I think that's in there
yeah.
somewhere.
I agree. And then
Like
yeah,
it's very much our idea that like we have we're stewards of this nature, or like of something like it, that we're responsible for blah blah blah. Like that's our idea. We're responsible for our own survival. The planet will be fine without us.
yeah. There's a saying I always liked, and is it's whatever, but in more in this context. But by doing nothing, nothing will be left undone. It's like, you know what I mean.
Yeah, I love that.
Sorry, I've been
No, I love
I
that.
just
No, that's
listen to
good.
weird lectures every morning about it's like too much Alan Watts and Richard
That's
Alpert.
why you're here, because
Stuff
you
like-
know that stuff.
But and then I guess yeah. No, the next part of this is one of my other favorites, man. It's like you were saying, we've kind of been dipping our toes in it, but it's the first official scene in the Black Lodge. Coop
Yeah,
falls
and
asleep.
the only thing I have to say, and this can kind of set the tone for whatever you want to say, but I noticed that the whole thing is set up like a late night show,
No,
Yeah.
which is what would come on after Twin Peaks,
Yeah.
after it was done, when it was airing, which I think is cool.
and then it also,
yeah.
I mean, without even getting into what it means, it starts getting into some of the weirder like visuals and stuff. Like I remember the coolest thing I thought about this, and it took me a while to figure out what they were doing. But like bands have ripped this off, but when they're speaking, they had to take their dialogue, say it backwards, and then they would play it forwards. Like, do you know what I mean?
That.
That's why it sounds so
really
weird when they talk.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I always thought that was like kind of the idea of like, if you like recorded something backwards and then played the record backwards, it would like play forwards, but it has that weird like you can't like I don't know, you can't talk like that organically. Or maybe I'm sure there's some people out there that have some weird talent to do that.
Someone
I
on
guess,
America's Got Talent.
Yeah, but
someone's done it.
those are the little things where, I mean, this is the episode that really was like starting to pull me in with like the oddities and the surrealness and just esoteric, and then the shaking and some of the weird cinematography. You know what I mean? You can tell. I think some of the scenes too, they would try to look like they were do it backwards and then play it forward, so it has that weird like gait and you know what I mean, that you can't. Once again, I'm sure some people can replicate that in like a normal. But I'm trying to think of the character's name. I know I need to get like the laptop so I can look on the side. What's his name?
Man from Another Place.
Yes,
it is okay. Place. Yeah, that's the Man from Another Place.
Oh, the other weird thing about the late night, but there's also, which I always assumed to be in the Black Lodge. I mean, this is like my whatever, but I assume it's a stripper pole. You know what I mean? There's never anyone on it, but there's just like that classic, like, you know what I mean? Like stripper pole. I don't know what else to, a metal pole in the middle of a room that looks like the size and the shape of a stripper pole. I don't. You know what I mean? So it's like this classy, weird, which is goes back to like One Eye Jacks and the horns and all this stuff. You know, which you wonder if that like
Mhm.
affected that. Did that like which is it amalgamous? Is it like is one affecting the other?
Well,
You know,
we associate late night stuff with being very milk toast and, you know, very PG nowadays. But back in the 90s, it was really raunchy, you know?
yeah.
Like, Mark Hamill was on Conan O'Brien talking about, yeah, I partied with Howard Stern for New Year's and we had naked ladies everywhere. This is when saying naked ladies was a thing. And, you know, there were strippers all, you know, like, because that was something people wanted to see. That was like, there wasn't an internet for them to get porn from yet. So they were like, anyone just talking about this stuff is exciting, you know? So there was actually like I think more of a connection between general raunch and late night stuff. That was like where you went to get all the dirty jokes after all the tame stuff from the daytime was over, you know, I think. So I think that might actually be, you know, somewhat of a conscious connection is the idea of like merging like late night and one-eyed jacks. Like this idea that like, you know, you're still exploiting and like there's still some level of, you know, just like especially with women in particular. That was the time when, you know, they would Howard Stern was big and they would just humiliate women however for just the spectacle of it, for the shock factor just to get talked about the next day, you know. So I suspect there might be a connection there, but I think that's cool because I didn't make that until now. You mentioned it. You know, I was so caught up in the late night thing because I was like, yeah, that's an interesting reflection of the atmosphere, just the climate that he was in while making this show, and then being expected to explain it after the fact. Maybe it was sort of like a pointless dream to him to go on these shows and get interviewed by these guys and be like, "What did you mean?" It's like just watch it. You know, maybe that was his interpretation of that. I don't think all this was conscious, but I think it might be in there. You know, that's my reading of it. On top of everything else, as I see David Lynch expressing himself through this in a lot of ways. You know.
Yeah. And then they show the floor pattern for the first time. The iconic
Mm.
like triangular floor pattern. Flashes of Bob and Laura's body. And then there's the famous line of when he finally says the through the darkness of futures past, the magician longs to see one chance out between two worlds, fire walk with me. I used to say that for like a year before we would play. Not like a sample, I would just say it, but
Yeah,
it's just one of the awesomest things ever
it is
said. I don't,
because
you know what
I it
I
didn't
like
make
if
sense at all to me at first,
we
but
could do
I'm
like
getting it.
I feel like we could do a special where we could just talk about that saying. I mean, I feel like if you know what I mean, it deserves its longer
I
than I
think
would be able to.
after we get through it, I do want to because I have thoughts on it, but my thoughts are not informed by the way everything plays out to the very end.
And
So
then and then after that, there's like, I mean, in a short amount of time, there's an intense amount of like awesome stuff slash stuff to chew on, which he's talking about. We've lived, among the people, which like who is we? This is like one armed man speaking, or Mike. And then they talk about the living above the convenience store, which there's some of that in season 3. Being touched by the devilish one. And then this is like the instrument. He talks about the face of God. It was changed, took his arm off, and then his name is Mike. His name is Bob. So then there's a correlation. You start understanding like Mike and Bob. It's almost like they're brothers, or you know what I mean. It's kind of like a what is it? Like the
symbiotic.
children of Abraham type of thing. You
Oh,
know
okay.
what I mean? Like type of deal. You know what I mean? And then one of the other things was one of my after he says his name is Bob, he talks. It was one of my other favorite lines in anything. He talks about catching him with his death bag, which I always thought was
Yeah.
just like an awesome. I'll
It
catch you
just
with my
sounds
death
cool.
bag.
Yeah.
It's like, but yes, and the Mike Bob relationship, and that he will kill again,
Mhm.
and that you start getting the idea that Bob doesn't speak much, and then there's the everyone's favorite where the man from another place says "Let's rock," and they're just like sitting there, and everything's just like you know, it's like movement. Oh, and then Laura taps her nose, and they show an odd shadow on the curtain of something flying.
Oh yeah. Which initially you think that's just, cocaine is what that is, but which I guess it could just be, but I mean, I haven't watched all the other episodes in a while, so I don't remember if it directly connects.
And then he also says, "I've got good news," and this is like a very David Lynch thing. He tells him the gum that you like is going to come back in style, and he
To
claims
me, what are you
it's
gonna
like that's an like I love. That's why I love this show. You're like it's in the middle of this like super weirdest part so far, and that's
Yeah.
like you get like the fire walk with me chant, and then he's talking about like the face of God and taking off his arms and then becoming people. And then he
Yeah.
kind of wraps it up with the gum that you like will be coming back in style. It's
Which
like,
is
which is
I
like,
think it's haunting.
it's like,
Yeah.
It's
there's like,
creepily personal.
you know what I mean? It's like after the death bag and like,
It
oh,
is.
Yeah.
it's like such like an awesome, and it's kind of like the last thing he says. Oh, and he says that Laura Palmer is his cousin and he looks like her. It's like, so there's a gums coming back in style. I'm her cousin. It's like, it's such a, it's like a, I don't know, it's like a roller coaster of awesomeness. Like even though you're going up and down, it's like every part of it's awesome. And
The gum thing like really fucked with me when I first saw it because it's like shit. Sometimes I do think about. Sometimes it's like I miss Big League Chew, and then the thought is just fleeting, and
I know.
so that's why it's like God. Like, what are you doing in my head? Like, how has that thought been a perpetual thing that I have it in my modern day life, and I haven't. I don't chew gum. That's not a thing I do.
My the one what made me think of this is like when I was a kid, my favorite gum, and it was like Chinese fortune gum, and it was a penny, and it was orange, and you would like open it, and it had like a wrapper like a fortune cookie, and it had an
That's some
incredibly
Pennsylvania 80s,
what I would
90s thing.
what I would call an incredibly the logo was like an incredibly racist depiction of a
Of course.
Chinese person, like the classic whatever.
Oh, no.
It's probably
Yeah.
why. It's probably
gone.
why it doesn't exist anymore. To be honest with you, but like, you know what I mean. It was like I don't even necessarily want to get into it, but if people want to Google it, they can and they can see what I'm talking about.
Hey.
But that would be the gum. I mean, maybe not to come back in style, maybe with a different wrapper, but it was just like plain ass bubble gum. It wasn't You know what I mean? That bubble gum flavored bubble gum wasn't like, you know what I mean?
Well,
But it was a penny, man. And I remember when I was a kid, it was like, man, you'd find like 35 cents in the couch. And
Homie, you can still buy this shit.
yeah, dude, you could
And
fucking
it's
chew that
still
shit. You could chew it till your jaw fucking wouldn't work anymore.
It's
Like,
still available. You can buy it.
Yeah.
And it is racist.
Yeah.
oh, you found
Yeah,
it?
totally.
Yeah.
Oh,
A
no.
box of 48 is only $7.40. So if you want to,
Right. You send it to the group chat. I'll
Yes.
edit in a picture and I'll try and add
Yeah.
some
At
appropriate
least the way
commentary.
people know the feelings of it. But yes, no, it was.
And we can compare it.
It's
to
weird
Big
because
League
even when I
Chew.
was like 6, I was like, this is,
this feels weird.
you know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's
it's like I've met Chinese people.
Yeah,
They don't look
I
like
mean,
this.
I may be 6, but this depiction is a bit much. You know what I mean? Like, it was, yeah, sorry.
I'm so surprised
Well-
that's still available.
Yeah. Actually, I knew a person a while back that did like a lot of eBay stuff, and I believe they had like half of a like storage space full of that. because you could buy.
Awesome.
I would imagine like if you would buy a lot of it, you would get it for like, you know what I mean. You could probably get like a pallet of it for like $50. You know what I mean? Based on its price.
Important.
You know what I mean? Like, it was like it was penny back then. But yeah, it was just
it's
like
cheap. Yeah.
But yeah, I think it was like a quality over quantity thing when I was a kid. I just remember being like, I could just chew it until like just obscene, like, you know what I mean. And
that
like,
mattered. We took it personally when we would chew gum and it would only last for like a couple minutes. We all got pissed.
The fruit stripe.
Yeah, I actually found the bubblegum flavored stuff lasted because it didn't have as like whatever of a taste to like. Do you know what I mean? It like.
Yeah.
I feel like the flavoring, or I'm sure it's flavored to some extent, but not like a
too
fruit.
into gum.
Yeah.
That's why Big League Chew was a big deal to me, because I was like disillusioned to gum at a certain point as a kid. I was like, all right, it's not minty. If I'm not drinking it or chewing it to clear my breath up, it's probably just gross. And then I had some like very almost sour, tangy version of Big League Chew that was still gum flavor, but it hit such a spot
I had like
in my
a green
brain.
apple that was good.
It wasn't that, but it kind of similar flavor, and like to me, that like I had it a couple times in like the very early 2000s, like around Jurassic Park 3, so like 2001. I don't know, 2001, let's say. And like I was like, oh man, gum can matter again, and then it went, and then I could never find it again. So I have a gum that haunts me, you know, because all other gum turned into disillusionment. You know, I understood the corporate scam of it all when I was like, you know, 12, 13, whatever, you know, and then this, I was like, wait, this is true gum. So I had that memory, like a weird, stupid memory, like lodged in the back of my mind growing up. And then I start to watch Twin Peaks, and I see that, and I'm like, "Oh, fuck off! Like this, you're not gonna fuck with me that way." Like, because every once in a while, it creeped up that thought. So it's like, am I really that? Is this really like a human, like that deep of a tie to the human experience? Like the thought of wanting this stupid fleeting thing, you know, that gum you like is going to come back. Like, something about that just fucks with you so much.
Especially when you're in this like dream state, you know, like whatever place, and that's like, you know, where you would think that every word would be, you know, and then it's like,
and you've already been presented with the concept of nostalgia as a threat, as a thing that's damaging and hurtful. You know, like that already has established itself. You know, that nostalgia hurts in this universe, so like it feeds into that. You know,
Big League Chew had the perfect blend of that, whatever sugar white powder was too. You know what I'm talking about? There was some, and it's the number one gum that I noticed. You can notice freshness in. Like there were certain times you would get like a fresh thing of Big League Chew, and it was like the best.
That was it.
And then it would get like, you know what I mean? It would be like soft, almost like wet spaghetti, you know? And then it would get like a little whatever. Obviously, once you broke this.
I'm sure I can just blame private equity like everything else, you know?
They still have it in some places around here. There's like the grocery stores, the one grocery store chain around me. They always have this like thing of like, I don't know, 80s candy. You know what I mean? Like stuff. Kind of like, just candy nostalgia, like, and they'll always have Big League Chew there.
Yeah, I'm haunted by that, and then also the fact that like there was a dumb Family Guy joke about it, like 10 years ago, just some offside joke. Just Peter just said like, you know, I haven't had Big League Chew in a while. I wonder if it's still good. Like it's just some stupid time filler joke, you know, just nothing. And like, and that was another thing where it's like, oh, I've had that thought recently, and I felt really like man, am I really that generic? I guess so. I guess, you know, but it's a universal experience, you know. These things haunting us from when the stakes were much lower. All we had to care
And then pretty much after that, it ends with Matt's favorite, which is some dancing to music, you know, and the birds. There's birds as well. Some lights. Laura, she gives Coop a kiss, whispers in his ear, but you don't know what she says, which was like maddening. And then he wakes up the second she kisses him. He wakes up from the dream. And he calls Harry. It's the end of the episode. And this is a good cliffhanger for an episode. He calls Harry, says he knows who killed Laura, and it can wait. That's like my. It's like
no,
he's like,
get away.
It's like such a. It's like, man, I just love this show, man. It's like, you know what I mean? It's like
very relatable.
So then you wonder, you know, and I can't. I've been trying not to go too far ahead. I've been trying to, like, you know, watch episode 3, and then if I had a little time, I'd watch it again, as opposed to like trying to get out too far, because I'm just trying to keep whatever. And I'm trying to remember if they talk about that, what she whispered, but I can't remember.
I don't know off the top. I think it comes. Maybe he does say it verbatim, but I'm gonna have to rewatch the next episode to know.
I watched. That's what I mean. I was like, I watched 3 a few times, and just would like add to notes if worst case. You know what I mean? Just.
I'm gonna have to. What I was gonna say, like about that scene, like I love it because it's one of those moments where it kind of like it gives you more confidence in him. It kind of reestablishes like, okay, I'm safe with liking this guy's name. He's not gonna turn on me, because like the more I thought about it, the more I was like, no, that is something I could totally see myself rationalizing. Is having this big epiphany and calling someone about it, and then being like, yes, but we're both tired right now. I just want you to know. We're both I can't articulate it yet. I'm too tired, you know. Like, there's all these things that are implied. Like, once you think about it, it's like, oh yeah, he probably wasn't trying to be mysterious. He probably was just like, it'll take too long to, but like, it's just such a funny way of putting it. Like, no, it can wait till morning.
Yeah.
It's just like such a great, like, you know, like, I mean, we've said it a million times, but a great character in that, like, you know, every time you think like, well, can I trust this guy? Is he a reliable, reliable protagonist? And then like something like that'll happen, and it's like, okay, yeah, he's supposed to be like, you know.
Parts of 4, but I have to watch it again. I mean, it's like, well, like any of them, but I'll get
that's
on
for
it.
next time.
Yeah.
I'm gonna.
And then I actually saved. We can like open next time. I have a record or two I've been listening to, and a video game or two.
I was gonna ask. I don't know how much time we got to just plug a couple things that we've been into besides our own stuff. I was gonna say I have listened to the new Zayo EP, and it's it's just like everyone wants. It's great. Love those covers.
And there was no real
Sounds
specific.
Great.
It's nostalgic stuff, but it was also something we've been talking about for a long time, and part of it was the process of like trying to work out some like recording,
you did
stuff, and trying to, prior to a new full length, trying to test a lot of waters. You know what I mean? And abilities of modern technology.
Well, Jeff keeps hinting at all these little fun surprises leading up to whatever the full length is, so I'm excited for all the journey. And but that's what I've been listening to. The other thing that I want to plug that I've been addicted to is the new single from The Ocean
Okay, I'll
with their
check that
two
out.
new vocalists. There's a guy who is, doing the stuff that Loic kind of did, the growling and all the, you know, guy singing. And then they have a second vocalist now who she used to do some guest stuff, but now she's in full time, and it's really cool. It's really great. I've been addicted to the song. It's called Light Pollution by The Ocean. Um,
I'll
so
grab
I
that real
haven't
quick.
watched a lot of cool stuff that I can think of lately, you know, that I can plug. But those two things, the new Zayo Pillars EP and the new single from The Ocean called Light Pollution.
I
Quality
grabbed that.
stuff. The music video you should watch for Light Pollution, really great. Really want to encourage more stuff like that. Just simple. You'll see what I mean when you watch it. It's a real simple idea, but they commit to it in a way where you just feel it. You feel it all the way through, and you're like, yeah, you guys, you didn't blow the bank, but you made sure everything was top notch when what you were doing, and that's the way to do it. So that's why I'm plugging it so much. So they're carrying the flag of effort right now in a music climate where everyone's really trying to cash in on just like whatever's cool, which is not new, but um, and then yeah, I'm working on new Skin Stripper song that I'm gonna get your vocals from soon. I'm almost done, so that'll be for a single
Oh
or an
yeah.
EP or whatever we do, and then so I got Skin Stripper and At Zero that are going on right now. So that's what I'm plugging that I've been up to, and At Zero new music video is about to
Oh
pop
nice.
out that I've been working on. It's a fun little.
Cool.
I'm trying to make psychedelia myself. We'll see. I'll show it to you in a second. It's for Blood Lounge 1 and 2.
Nice.
But anyway, that's rambling about my crap. That's what I've been into and up to. So, how about you, Matt? What have you been into?
I haven't been into much because I've just got off vacation, so like
What
it's
did
just
you
been.
What did you witness on vacation?
I
Was there
went
a
to
guy
Disney
playing?
World
Okay, there.
for a
Talk
week.
about what did you make of it?
I was telling Dan earlier, so I went about a year ago with my girlfriend for her birthday for a couple of days.
Yeah.
This was a 5-day trip with 5 people, 3 children. So it was a different experience. It was extremely stressful, but it
Ooh.
was super fun also. But like I was telling Dan earlier, like when you're there for a week and you're staying at the resort, you see a lot of the same people
Yeah.
throughout the week, and you see their flare ups and their family dynamic, and you see, the pissed off dad walking way ahead of the family because he just can't handle it anymore, and mom trying to like wrangle everything, and just the kids screaming and having a fit. And that's like day 3, but day 1, everybody's in the best mood. It's this interesting world that feels separate from the rest of the world where everything is magnified. And I've been wanting to write about that a little bit.
You
But
should.
that is something I've been thinking about a lot while I was there, because that's what I do is I people watch a lot. And so I watch that kind of thing and observe people, families, and dynamics and things.
To be fair, Disney is not worth it the way it once was. You're paying a lot
Dude,
more and getting a lot less.
so much money, brother.
Yeah. And for less quality,
Yeah,
specifically in the food, but a lot of other places. So I don't blame anyone for getting impatient there nowadays.
it's rough. It's just a lot. It's just a lot of stuff.
But hey, you got to see all the news. What was the most what's a fun way to put this? Like in terms of things that you could tell were a new thing that they're trying out,
Yeah.
what thing seemed to work out the best to you that you've noticed?
So
Was
they
there
do
anything you
like
know?
this thing called Lightning Lane now, which I mean you're from Florida, so maybe you went a lot, but
All the fast pass stuff became a scam like
yeah.
5 years ago, 10 years
Well,
ago.
it's really a way to pay for convenience and milk more out of you, but you
Yeah.
kind of you need it if you don't have patience or if you have kids with
Yeah.
ADHD or anything like that. You got to pay this extra fee on top. But it works because you're getting on the ride in 20 minutes versus 3 hours.
Okay, so you get what you pay for at least.
Kind of, but it's also, that feels like a scam in and of itself that you have to pay for that convenience.
Or it's a create a problem to create a solution type of thing.
True, very much so. I mean, surely it added to the bottom line in a big way.
Well, Disney has made a lot of mistakes in terms of big investments that haven't returned the money they put into it in terms of movies lately. So that's got
the food is incredible. They have some really good fine dining in Disney.
Okay,
I like
so
fine dining.
That stuff, yeah. No, but all the walk up and get a burger places are
that's ridiculous.
Not good.
But if you want fine dining, it's priced appropriately. Like we went to a French spot that was like $70 a person for a 3-course meal. Can't beat that. We went to, and I mean, incredible food. We went to a really nice Brazilian place, or not Brazilian. God, it's called Tippett's, and the best pork I have ever had in my life. Just incredible good food. And I would have paid 10 times for that. I would eat it every day. The food's amazing. So just for that, it's worth going.
I was going to add to that by saying people argue about where the best pizza in America is. It's at Epcot in the Italy pavilion.
Is it?
In Florida.
Is it?
I've been all over the country. I've had all the best pizza people talk about. I mean, Dan has probably had more than I have, so you probably have less
spot?
But the pavilion, there's a place at the Epcot pavilion. They have a sit down place that's like it's the pizza spot.
I had no
where
idea.
you go to get pizza, and they have people from Italy and ingredients from Italy.
Cool.
So they have pizza from Italy.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
Nice.
It's the best
awesome.
I've ever had.
I want my next vacation to be like in the mountains with no cell phone service.
Well, wait, what's Dan's favorite?
Sorry, Dan.
I gotta hear it.
There's a place in Brooklyn called Lindustry. It's just in, I'm trying to think, near Greenpoint maybe. That was like the best piece of pizza I ever had. Or, and it's not because it's my buddy's place, but there's a place back here called Rockaway. And it's my friend Josh. He was in, I'll get into that another time, some cool bands and stuff. But my favorite pizza, maybe even more than theirs, there's this, he does one, it's kind of like a Detroitish style. It's called a grandma pie. And it's like, it's kind of Detroit style, and it's a little denser, or thicker, but it's super light. And it has like sesame seeds smashed on the bottom, and it creates like this crust. And the top's a little bit like, it's like a plum, reminds me of a plum tomato sauce. It's good, man. I'm sorry.
All right, I'll try that. I don't think I've had that kind of, but because I went to just the places where everyone pointed me to go.
Pittsburgh has some good pizza, man. Like it's and then I had my brother-in-law had a food truck for a while, and he was like super into pizza. And then we went up to Brooklyn to see a show, and then like he happened to be there, and we went to 11 places in one day. Like, you know what I mean? Because like we'd have like a piece of pizza walk like 4 or 5 blocks, and then just kind of would do that over. Maybe it was over 2 days, not one day. 11. We went to 11 but like best pizza and all the big like whatever, like kind of like not tourist, but whatever. Like if you go to Brooklyn and would Google like best pizza in Brooklyn, it's like best pizza and like all these places. But I can get into all my pizza theories later when I walk into a pizza place. Like there's like weird things that I found that you're like, oh shit, it's going to be good. One is if whoever's cooking, it's wearing sweatpants. Bonus points if one of the legs is higher than the other.
Of course, yeah.
Dude, I don't know what it is, but like, if you go in and you're like, there's the main dude, he's wearing sweatpants, you're like, oh shit, it's going to be good. And then if one of the legs is like pulled up a little bit, it's going to be fucking even better. Dude. I don't know, maybe someone out there can whatever.
Substantiate that, maybe.
Yeah. Investigate.
But I got to jump off in a second, but I'll plug 2 things. My my brain's been into like weird music ish kind of. My wife's going through some stuff. She's like super open about it, so like she doesn't care if I talk about it. But she was like diagnosed with cancer and stuff recently, And there's I was telling Matt before we got on, like after a diagnosis, what kind of sucks is then it's like weeks until they're like you have cancer, and then in a few weeks we'll start figuring it out. You know what I mean? So you have these like
Yeah.
this weird window where you just get to like they're like, we'll tell you have cancer, and then we'll let you just sit with that for a couple weeks and just let your mind fucking torture you. You know what I mean? And I understand you got to wait for them anyway. But I think part of me, it's like fast, like fucking. So I've been I had the names along with I've been really into this grind record, man. Band's called Fake Dust, and it's like everything I liked about the similar vibe from the '90s. It's called Decrepitizing Din of the Cerebral Psyopticon, and it's fucking fantastic, and it's like what I need. Does that make sense? Like I don't like my brain, whatever. I'm not like I like grindcore a lot, but I'm not necessarily someone who's like constantly listening to it. It has to be. It's like I like it when it's like there's like a handful of bands I like. Do you know what I mean? I'm not like an across the board like it's my genre. Like I'm into all of it. It's like there's just certain fucking people that are just they do it in a way where it's like like incredible. And then there's this other band called Warning. They just put out a record called Rituals of Shame.
I was listening to that earlier.
And to quickly explain it without this being a podcast about doom metal, if I would have to describe Warning, and I mean this as a mega compliment, but just using dumb words to make a very quick point, it's like emo doom. It's the singing is very like strong. It's not operatic. It's very
Aussie singing.
It's strong, and it's got a little bit reminds me of like an indie rock tinge to it, or like a whatever. And then the music is what I would call funeral doom. If I had to pick from like, you know what I mean? It's like it's very wrung out, very minimal, but lyrically, it's very like the singer sounds incredibly passionate, like when he's performing, and it's about like relationship depth. You know what I mean? Whereas in a lot of doom is like this wizard is crushing this guy's skull with a a piece of brick that he is using magic to like whatever, you know what I mean? Or it's like aliens or the bottom of the ocean, or you know what I mean? Whatever. As to where this is very like personal, you know what I mean? And they had a record before has man like you know what? It's one of the I was literally listening to her today, and I'm doing that thing where I can't remember something that I think it's From a Distance. It's called, but it is like it's like one of those songs that like I can't listen to it if I'm not in the right headspace. It's like you know what I mean? What you mean. Watching From a Distance, I think it's called. Sorry, apologize, Warning if you're watching. But they just put out a new record called Rituals of Shame, and then I think that Fake Dust record came out like a couple months ago. But I'd heard
watching From a Distance.
Yeah, it's it's. I mean, if you're into that, I mean, I'm any of the music I like. I'm very always like whatever about being like you should listen to it. Like, do you know what I mean? I'm like I like it.
I'll second that.
I don't. A lot of music I really like.
Than me, but yeah.
I don't know if people would like it. I don't know. It's like because look, you know what I mean. I feel like I look for weird connections in music that maybe other people, you know, and if it wasn't for that connection, I don't know how I would feel about it or whatever. You know what I mean? Like
I'm pretty similar in a lot of ways. You know.
But those are the two records that are like newer, I guess, that have come out in some like the recent past.
It's Warning and
they're called Fake Dust.
Fake Dust.
Yeah, it's I actually was stoked the other day because I have this like curse where I get into a band and I'm like, yeah. So I mean, people have a lot of opinions on this now, but usually like actually their stuff's not on stream or anything. I found like was able to actually get, they like repress something quickly and I got it. So it's the only place I found that you can listen to it is on Bandcamp. You know what I mean? Or YouTube, I guess the new record's on YouTube. But if you want to listen to it in like an actual streaming-ish type of way, you can go to Bandcamp. I think you can listen to it like 3 times for free. I think that's how it works. I don't know if
Buy
it's
it
3. I could be
anyway.
completely fucking wrong, but
Buy it anyway.
I know that there's some stuff I've listened to, and after so many times that I didn't count, it'll like say like, hey, if you want to listen to this anymore, you got to buy the digital version. Or what I like about
Yeah.
Bandcamp too is usually if you buy a record, you get the digital version for free. It's like automatic. But I try to do
Yeah.
as much stuff through Bandcamp as possible. But that Fake Dust, that new record's on Bandcamp. There's an old demo, and the drummer can do those like fucking gravity blasts, dude, where it's like
Hell
I can't even mouth how fast it is. It's like
yeah.
insane. And he does a lot of cool like it's blasting, but it's like it's like, you know what I mean? He puts like a cadence to it where it's not just like a straight without any interrupt. It's cool. It's a little in the
I know what you're
grind,
talking about.
and the singer does all the kind of whatever that I like, all the different vocal personalities that I like. It's got like that like grindcore low, like not guttural, but you know, like just like whatever when that kind of shit I rip off type of highs.
Yeah.
That I can't do anymore because I'm almost 50, but I call them mid highs now. You know what I mean?
No,
Like,
I think you sound great. I think it
but
still sounds evil. So, and
yeah,
that means I'll be able to when I'm 50, hopefully.
yeah, I just had to retrain myself a little bit and be aware of. I mean, one of the things that happen as you age is like your skin and all of your stuff loses elasticity and collagen.
Yeah.
And I feel like when that comes to, I mean, that's why I feel like any singer of any style as they age can't get those high because like some of those muscles in your throat don't tighten up as tight as they used to without having to get into like a confusing, you know what I mean? And I don't want to ever fucking push it, you know what I mean? Like in the sense of like cause any whatever. I feel like I can feel, I don't do it right. That's another, sometime in an episode we'll have to pick, and I have a lot of opinions on vocal coaches. If you ever,
I do too. So that'll be fun to talk
yes,
about.
and I feel like it's, I'm not even going to start. Someone take a note where maybe when an opening we can discuss vocal coaching or
We will.
your thoughts and
Put
opinions
a
on
pin in
vocal
it for
coaching.
now.
You know what I mean?
Because I have opinions too. I think a lot of people, all I'm going to say to keep it as vague as possible is I think a lot of people put in too much thought while ignoring some very obvious things that should be fundamental.
Mm-hmm.
But whatever. That's me
Yes.
being a man of opinions.
Yeah, and I feel like the overly whatever techniques rob it of all passion and do you know what I mean?
I agree, but
Personality.
also that gets into trends and incentive and the reasons people make decisions and a lot of stuff that I have a lot of thoughts about.
That's what I was saying. I was like, this could not be a quick conversation.
Yeah,
You know,
so
and
let's leave it at. But yeah, I have solidarity with that.
Yeah, and I don't think people that, I mean, I think there's people that are, if you, and I'll make this quick. I think there's people that on whatever, like, yes, you are technically, you blow me out of the fucking water as a vocalist. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I'm an honest, like, you know, whatever. You know what I mean? But it's also like gets into some dumb, more like, I guess, also what you're doing music for, and like personally, and for, you know.
Yeah,
We're
and
starting to go down.
it's fine.
I'll just stop.
Just to keep it vague, I'm happy for people in that I'm sure they're having fun, and I'd love to have that same amount of fun and get a steady paycheck for it. But I personally need something that hooks in my brain and stays with me in a visceral way, not just a spectacle way, Like, once you watch the fastest runner, they don't matter anymore once there's a guy who's faster than them, That's how I feel about it. Anyway,
Sorry.
that's the overall.
And then we could get
anyway,
Matt's
I'm done
opinion. I
with
mean, I literally feel like there's people now that within like a month or so can do certain things, and you can do some crazy shit, man. But it's like,
the reality is, though, that was already the case when I was getting into it. So I had to make peace with, like, I'm going to do a thing that I want to figure out what I sound like. Anyway, but we're already what 2.5